Greetings and welcome to Straight from the Heart, a podcast of Health Education for Africa Resource Team, or as most friends know us, Africa Heart, a 501c3 organization based in the United States and Kenya. I'm Jerry Kitchell, your host of this program, which features insightful conversations and stories shared by incredible people who make this ministry possible. Betsy Gunther is a very familiar name at Heart. For over 20 years, her contributions as an employee, volunteer, and ardent supporter are simply too many to number. But what is certain is that she has touched the lives of many people, of all ages, here in the United States and Kenya. Her love for missions is tangible. Betsy and her husband Mark make their home in Colorado, where they have two lovely daughters, Paige, who is in college, and 10-year-old Charley. In this enjoyable interview today, you'll have a chance to meet Charley. She was on last year's trip to Kenya with her mom and sister. It was a wonderful time, a great experience, and a blessing never to be forgotten. We begin with Betsy and a snapshot of how she became involved in Heart, and we'll hear from Charley as well, who's quite an ambassador for this ministry.
I think that Kenya has always been something that was a little bit mysterious because it's such an unknown country to a lot of us here in the United States. So when the opportunity to go on a mission trip in 2004 came about through my church, it was a little bit mysterious, a little bit exciting, a little bit overwhelming, and just felt like God kept opening doors for this trip to happen. So I first began working with Heart as a guest and as a missionary in 2004. And I returned several times with Cherry Hills Community Church, and I also returned with Valor Christian High School as both just a team member and a team leader. And each time I went to Kenya, I kept extending my stay. I'd stay for 2 weeks, and then I stayed for 4 weeks, and eventually I stayed for 6 weeks, just doing kind of back-to-back teams. And I just loved it. I loved the culture. I loved the atmosphere. I loved just all of the opportunities that Heart provides to the community. So when in 2012, I was pregnant and Vicki Winkler asked me what my plans were once I had Charley. And I said, I'm not sure my plans. Do you have any plans for me? And as Vicki often does, she has ideas anyway. We leave it to God for the plans, but Vicki has ideas and was nudging me along the way. So an opportunity opened for me to work part-time for Heart out of the Colorado office. They had already established quite a few teams and partnerships, but they just needed someone who was dedicated to that role to be able to walk alongside people so the trips weren't so overwhelming and weren't so mysterious, so that Heart could set some expectations for teams of what they might experience in Africa and just really personalize those efforts. So while I was working part-time, Charley and Paige both were a big part of my Heart experience. We helped to host Kenyan staff when they would come to Colorado, or we would help to put together fundraisers in Colorado. We would just spread the word. We didn't, at that period of time, I wasn't traveling as much because the kids were younger, but they were always a part of it. They knew if mom has the door shut, that means don't come in. We're on a meeting. Sometimes Charley would just be taking naps underneath my desk. So she was a big part of the reason that I became a part-time staff member.
Well, Betsy, it had to be pretty special when you had that opportunity to travel to Kenya with your two daughters. Can you tell us about that?
I think I actually wore a couple of hats while I was in Africa, and being able to come as both a staff member and a parent, as well as just my own missionary heart for serving. So I was a little nervous how I might be able to juggle all of those things. But what I realized is the Kenyans, being the warm hosts and hostesses that they are, they embraced my kids just like they're their own kids. And we see that in the village atmosphere that, the expression, it takes a village. Well, it literally does in Kenya. But the way that the staff took the kids under their wing, they would, escort them off to a different area. They would find jobs for them to do. It really put me at ease right away that my kids would be just fine. That the most difficult thing was the time change. But everything else, the food, the transportation, the safety, connecting with people, they just really embraced my kids as their own kids. And I think those of us who've traveled to Kenya all feel that, and we already feel like part of the family. And I think that's something that I'm the most proud of through my years of working with Heart, is that we create this across the pond family of Kenyans and of different team members who might even live in different states but share the same stories and share the same connections. And then to be able to share that with my kids, they've started telling their own stories and their own connections that might look a little bit different than I would say, but it was a trip that's been very worthwhile as far as being able to continue those stories and continue the attitude of serving, and the attitude of making a difference doesn't just have to be the parents in the family.
So Charlie, what was it like for you when you got ready to go? Were you kind of afraid of it, or were you excited, or what was going through your mind?
Well, while we were getting ready, I was pretty excited, but then again, I really knew nothing about where I was going. So it was like a really exciting experience, and kind of like my mom said, mysterious, because I didn't really know where I was going, but I knew I was going to have fun, and I knew I was going to meet a bunch of new people.
So what was that first day like? You kind of smiled when your mom was talking about the time difference and jet lag and that sort of thing. Was that first day kind of challenging for you?
Yeah, it was a little bit. We got there pretty late at night, so like I couldn't really see anything. And then the next day I woke up and it just kind of all like started to sink in, and it was really, really cool to see everything.
So what were some of the first things that you were able to do when you got there?
Well, originally Mom introduced me to a lot of the staff that I've like seen her on meetings with. And that was pretty cool because I used to be like that little kid just sitting in the background, and then it was cool to like see all these people that knew me.
And you made friends really quick?
Definitely.
I think one of the first things that all of our teams do, and then with the girls and I, is starting off the day with devotions and being able to set that tone with our team members, but also for our family. It really calms any anxious hearts and unites the staff immediately with our guests or with our team members and our small little family team, that we're all there for the same vision and purpose. And I think that even some of the songs, I remember the girls turning and looking at me like, I know this song. And so to have that connection of music and just worship time and even scripture was a great way to set the tone for the week. Do you remember that?
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
You know, for a lot of people, and myself included, when I've stayed at the lodge, it's just so peaceful, and the people are so friendly, and the food is so delicious. And the rooms are really cool too, because they have that Kenyan look to them. I mean, what were some of your impressions when you stayed there at the lodge, Charlie?
I just thought it was really cool. It was like, because like I said before, it was a place I've never been, and I didn't expect it to look anything like it did. So that just made like everything more exciting and more fun to see.
I think as a staff member and as someone who's traveled to Kenya many times, I kind of forgot to prepare them in that way. Although I tell our team members, follow our social media and you'll see lots of pictures. You'll know what to expect by looking at our social media platforms. I hadn't really done that with my kids because they weren't on social media yet. And so I don't think they knew there would be palm trees. Mm-mm. Or I don't think they knew that it was a pretty temperate climate, because for us in March in Colorado, it's pretty chilly, and in Kenya, it was hot. So I think the food, they weren't expecting to be nearly as great as it was. And to a little kid, a buffet is pretty great.
Yeah.
Do you remember what your favorite food was?
Not really. I know I liked a lot of the fresh fruit.
Mm-hmm.
Because like in Colorado, we don't really get our fruit like all that fresh because it has to be picked early. But it was just really cool that we had this fruit and it was like ripe right then and there.
I remember you and Paige ate a ton of mangoes, and you loved the juice in the box.
How about ugali?
Oh, do you remember the
Oh, yeah.
cornbread?
I thought that was pretty cool. It was kind of interesting because like we don't really have anything like that in Colorado, so it was just really cool to like see all the different foods for different cultures.
I have pretty adventurous kids.
Yeah, that's awesome. So once you were there, and of course spent time with your mom, had a chance to meet the members of the staff, and a chance to see all these people that you know your mom had been connecting with, but you're meeting them now for the first time. But then what did you do after that? Did you go out to the villages, and did you have a chance to meet some of the mothers and the children? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so while we were there, we went and we visited a slum, and that was kind of cool to see like just like different places because they don't really have those in Colorado. So it was cool to see like people still being happy when they have so little. And then we also went to some of the weep houses, and that was pretty cool because just all the people were so energetic and excited.
So did you get a chance to interact with some of the kids there too?
Yeah, I saw some of the kids, and we met our sponsor student while we were there. And so we got to meet like her family, and it was kind of cool to see kids who were like about my age living a completely different life from me.
Do you remember what game you played around the?
Yeah, and then with all the kids, we played hide and seek like around their farm. So that
Hide
was
and
pretty
seek,
cool.
and I think you were playing Duck Duck Goose.
Oh yeah.
Even the moms got into the Duck Duck Goose. That it was fun to come with just different generations. Charlie being 10 at the time, Paige was 18, because with our wheat mothers, so much to them is still new, but the 10 and the 18-year-old brought different games and different lenses and different music and just even different questions that they asked the wheat families that I didn't think to ask as an adult, or presumptions or assumptions that we make as an adult are brand new to kids or to people who've never been before. So I remember looking over and watching Charlie and Paige teaching the kids, but then our wheat moms also got into playing Duck Duck Goose.
What is Duck Duck Goose?
We had all the little kids sit in a circle, and then me and Paige like ran around, and each time we'd like pick a certain kid, and then we'd go goose, and then they'd all run and we'd all run around, and it was really fun.
You went to, was it Kabira that you went to? And where else did you go and visit?
We went up country, and then we stayed at a house for a couple days, and that was pretty cool.
How did you get up country?
Do you remember?
No.
We set out for remember it was like a 5 or 6 hour drive. She slept the whole way. Who knows?
So you didn't fly, you drove.
Yeah, we drove.
We drove up and then we flew back.
So was it a pretty bumpy ride going up there?
A little bit, but like my mom said, I was asleep, so it was okay.
Did you have a chance to help build a house?
We did not get to do that this trip.
Okay.
We didn't, but we got to, we weren't able to build a house this trip because just with our team being small and our time being short, but we were able to visit homes that actually my husband and I had previously been a part of building in 2018. So it was really neat to see that the homes were still standing and that the moms, of course, were still grateful and the gutters were still attached and things like that. So it was kind of a nice follow-up. The things that we are creating as Heart teams really are sustainable. I hadn't seen the chicken coops that Heart has purchased in the past and provided the chickens to the moms as a kind of an income generation starter. And so I was able to see those chicken coops, and just kind of as a follow-up to some of the projects I've been a part of, to see actually panning out and our donations actually producing fruit in the field.
So you had such a great exposure on that first and only trip that you've made so far, Charlie. And then when you came back to the States, what was going through your mind? You get into a plane and you fly back, and you're thousands of miles away from those people, but obviously they stayed strong in your heart and your mind, right?
Yeah, I came back and it was a little bit like weird because I came back and I'm like, where are all these people? I don't see anybody, but like I know they're still with me. I just don't know where they are. So it really did make a big impact on my life.
So then when you went back to school, you had a chance to share some of this with some of your classmates, right? And your teacher. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this year in middle school, I'm taking a speech class, and our first project of the year was an introduction speech about something that helped us like shape to where we are, and I chose my topic on Africa. So that was really cool because it helped me like get all the exposure out to everybody because at first only some of my friends knew. Like only the people closest to me like knew that I did all this. And then so it was really fun for me to just be able to talk to people and like them be able to hear about what we did.
Did you learn any words in Swahili?
A little bit. Don't know if I still remember a lot, but
Remember hello?
oh, Jumbo? No.
No.
Jumbo, Gina Longuni Charlie.
Oh, good. Say that again slower.
Okay. Jambu or Jump. Whoa. Um, Gina Longuni Charlie. I can say my name, but we didn't learn too much.
And Asante Sana.
Yeah. Remember Asante
Oh
Sana?
yeah.
Thank you. No.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great language. So when you were able to talk to some of your friends about it, were you thinking that you want to go back and you'd like to go back with your friends, or does that sound kind of interesting to you?
Yeah, I'd love to go back someday. I just don't know when. It'd be really cool to like go back to all the places we went now. And it'd be also be really fun if like all my friends went and they like got exposed to this.
And didn't you do something to help raise some support too for Heart?
Yeah, so like my mom said, me and my sister kind of went around and like exposed for her school projects. And then it was really cool to like bring the culture to our town. And then we held like a little sell day where people could buy a bunch of like the stuff the Weep mothers made. So that was really cool.
When we came back from Kenya, we had two full suitcases of Weep items, and I tried to bring things that were smaller in size so we could just have higher in quantity. And then we just had a day where I posted on our neighborhood social media and I posted on my personal social media and had an open house style environment where people could come and purchase anything from the little makeup bags to pot holders to some jewelry and some other stuffed animals and things like that. And we made about $750. So it was great to, again, just start up those conversations through the Weep gift shop, or sorry, through the Heart gift shop, because I think not everyone knows that Heart has these products to sell. So that is they're great gifts for people, not just souvenirs, but just gifts for people. And the gifts tell stories, and then the stories about the gifts start to draw people into the prospect of maybe taking this trip of a lifetime to Kenya. And maybe it's not just for you, but maybe you can share that with your parents or your children and be able to have this shared experience. When we first started going, it took us a long time. We saved for several years to go, but it's basically the same as a trip to maybe a Disney World. And I asked the girls, I specifically asked Paige when she was approaching graduation, would you rather go to on a family trip or would you rather go to Kenya? And I asked her a couple of times because I wanted to be sure that this was valuable to the kids as much as it was valuable to me, and they weren't just trying to be nice. But Paige repeatedly said she wanted to come to Kenya. She wanted to see what all of this was about. She wanted to see if her skills as a senior in high school learning about marketing could be helpful. And Charlie got to come because we, of course, couldn't take a trip without the whole family.
So, Betsy, when you look back on it post trip and you see the impact that it made on your daughters, and it goes from planning to actually being there to now coming back and seeing the fruits of that. How do you express that to other parents who might be considering doing something similar with their children? How would you encourage them to maybe think about it and approach it?
I think that my kids were the exact right age to have their own trust and their own faith in God. And they, as parents, we realize that everything we model gets replicated through our kids. And so for years, I'd been modeling my own faith, and they were replicating it, and they kind of had their own walk, but it was as part of our family. And then to be able to take them out of their comfort zones, to show them the things that we talk about, the things that we talk about that we value, whether it's education or relationships or valuing differences, or even just valuing having a growth mindset that will then give you confidence as you learn and experience new things. I think it was the best trip that they'll look back at their childhood and say they took, because we did it together. We took risks together, and they, as I said before, they, from the get-go, I went off to meetings and they went and did their own projects. So they were able to have ownership of what they were working on, and that ownership then gave them pride in a job well done. And a 10-year-old's not too small to do that. So Charley was in fourth grade when she went on the trip. She just gave this speech now in sixth grade. So I was really happy that over a year and a half had passed, and when asked to select something that would describe her to other people and that would introduce her to her classmates or even her teacher, she selected Kenya, and she selected the things that she learned from the trip as things that are very important to her. So it transferred from being my value or our values as a family to her values and the things that she wants people to know she represents.
One of the best things that we got to do was meet our sponsor student, Jemima.
And we started sponsoring a student in 2021, I believe it was. We just really got lucky that she was home during our trip while we were there, because students in Kenya, especially in secondary school, they go and live somewhere else for the better part of 10 weeks at a time. And then they come home for about a month, and that cycle continues month after month. So we just really got lucky that she was there. I think that while we chose to pay a $50 a month donation for Jemima's education, it doesn't really translate to what that means for Jemima and for her family to be able to have a post elementary or primary school opportunity. And we brought Jemima a backpack. We brought her some school supplies, really just as conversation starters, because for us, we have a lot of those things. We have access to a lot of those things, but to be able to hand them to her, to hear the gratitude from her mom, she just kept hugging us and hugging us. And Jemima, she would take especially Paige's hand, and they went off for a little walk because they were about the same age. And she was really telling Paige how grateful she was. And it almost becomes uncomfortable when you're giving a gift that is pretty manageable for us to give, because there's so much gratitude. And I think that we were actually probably overwhelmed by all the singing and the hugs and just the thankfulness for something that we chose to do and are thankful to do, but it's not a huge sacrifice. American world, that might not be a huge sacrifice in the opportunities that it afforded that family. It was transformational, and it was really, really cool to be a part of transforming that opportunity for Jemima's future.
So, Betsy, in your experience with volunteers and coordinating teams, and you spent years doing that and just created a kind of a wonderful mechanism for engaging people of all ages. So when you think about volunteering, and because so much of what Heart is able to accomplish is because people also get involved. They go there, they get on the front lines, they build houses, they do health screenings, the young people get involved in various tasks and so on. So when you think about anyone out there who's listening who might you'd like to encourage to consider volunteering, what would you say to them?
I think that through meeting so many people, Charlie's probably one of the youngest, age 10 when she traveled, all the way up to people in their 80s. There is a role for everyone. And sometimes it's hard to define before the person leaves the United States. And we just have to hope that they trust us to prepare these itineraries that will be mutually beneficial. Really, that's the goal, is to be mutually beneficial. In the end, we always know, as much as we're supporting Kenya, they uplift us and they support us mentally and spiritually and social emotionally, that it meets a lot of the U.S. needs. There is there's just a role for everyone. When my husband traveled with me, he wound up doing some painting projects around the lodge. I could have never known he was going to do that. When Charlie and Paige came, they connected with the children on a different level. They connected at some of the centers up country through the singing and the dancing and just being vulnerable because they are kids, being open to hearing the messages and really listening because everything was so new. So I think those of us who go year after year, we have those relationships that we love to continue, but there's also such a place for seeing the newness through someone's eyes and to be able to experience what ugali tastes like and what yummy mandazi, the fried donuts, how great those are. And just to be able to share food, share music, share working side by side. Doesn't matter how old you are, there's just a spot for everyone. And I hope that we get to return again. We talk to our Kenyan friends. Of course, we see them now with social media. We can see our Kenyan friends. And I don't know what the future jobs when we go will look like, but I know that there'll be something for everyone because God just continues to open those doors and it uplifts us. And we hope to just also uplift the people that we serve alongside.
Well, I couldn't think of a better way to close it, Betsy. I want to thank you so much, Betsy and Charley Gunther, sharing your heart, sharing your love. We've got just a few seconds here left, but if there's anyone in Kenya who might be listening to this podcast, is there something you would like to share with them? Just a word of greeting or encouragement? It's not a requirement.
I think we would just say that we miss you, we love you, you come up in our thoughts often, sometimes even just in our reading, we'll make connections, whether a staff member or a WEAP beneficiary or an education scholarship beneficiary. There's conversations that we've all had together that will forever hold a place in our hearts.
Thank you for joining us. To learn more about Heart, find us on the web at www.africaheart.com. Whether you're a regular Heart supporter or someone wanting to know more about this ministry, we'd love to hear from you. You can contact Lori Powell, Executive Director of Heart, directly by sending her an email to info@africaheart.com. That's info@africaheart.com. Until next time, Asante Sana. Many thanks. And may God richly bless you.